Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at the Patriot Desk in the United States of America on the East Coast. Ladies and gentlemen, we on Monday nights address a lot of critical issues affecting the United States of America, which have a ripple effect right north of us to Canada and vice versa. On Thursday nights, we address a lot of the issues that are affecting the wonderful nation of Canada. That certainly has a ripple effect south here to the United States. On Thursday night, folks, we're going to have a good broadcast. Special guests will be on, and I think you'll be excited when you hear about it come Thursday. Wednesday night, we're going to have a special broadcast here talking to some of the local candidates, meaning county and state, who have stepped up to the plate to help their country by getting involved locally. And I think you're going to hear some exciting things happening. And this is how we win the war against communism from the bottom up. Now, folks, I'm going to share something with you that absolutely stunned me about a half hour ago. You know, when we prepare for these broadcasts, we kind of look at what we believe to be the most critical issues that are affecting the people of our country here in the United States, and of course, those in Canada. But something stunning, and it's not easy to stun me, but this really shocked me. News just came across my desk. I'm going to read it to you, because those of you here in America who better wake up and wake up soon as to what's happening to our country, you're going to be just as stunned as I am. And I think on a local level, we'll have no choice but take some sort of action. We just got a report that there have been early demands from the National School Boards Association to the White House that included calling for, now listen to this, folks, that included calling for the deployment of the Army National Guard and the military police to monitor school board meetings. According to an early draft letter, the organization's independent review released Friday. Stunning. They actually, the New Jersey or the National School Boards Association, in a draft letter to the White House, has called for the deployment of U.S. military troops to school board meetings, folks. Never in my lifetime would have ever believed, ever thinking of something like this, let alone reading it. And this is on the heels, folks. You know, it's the White House. It's the people on the left, whether you're in here or in Canada, wherever you are. You're throwing stones at us saying, well, you know, your words matter. Anytime you say something, people take it to heart. Well, you know, the words of the White House matter when the Department of Homeland Security or the Department of Justice or the White House itself claims, publicly suggest that parents are domestic terrorists. So now you got these people in the White House mouthing off something like that, and then you get a national organization, a school board association that's supposed to be looking out for the education of our children. They decide that it is prudent. They decide it is prudent to ask the White House to call military troops to monitor school board meetings, so that when mom leaves the soccer field and comes to a school board meeting to discuss an issue affecting her child, she's got to face American military troops. Folks, I've said it all along, and I'll continue to say it. We said it way back 2 years ago. We saw this coming. Communism is alive and well in the United States of America. no one in their right mind who has been raised in this country, who has been gifted in this country, given great opportunity in this country, no one in their right mind, I would find hard to believe would ever suggest something like that unless they truly, truly betrayed their country and became a card-carrying communist. These people have lost their minds. Folks, this is how far gone things are. And we have to start waking up. And I'll tell you this, I believe that the wake-up call came, maybe an unintended good consequence. It came when the truckers in Canada decided to protest the vaccine mandates of their country. When they decided to protest against Trudeau, because all was quiet. America, with regard to Canada, was sleeping. We were more concentrated on the southern border, right? Let's face it, we were worried, rightfully so, justifiably so, concerned about the southern border. Terrorists, drug cartel members, murderers. Trump was right. He was right, folks. Amongst the good people, and there are a lot of good people crossing the border trying to escape the totalitarian tyrant criminal elements there, but you got to do it legally. But mixed into that crowd are pretty bad actors. So we were focused on that, believing, well, Canada, that's a great country. They're peaceful, they're quiet, they mind their own business. They don't get involved in all this stuff. When what was really going on was that Trudeau was introducing to the Canadian people a whole new form of governance, communism. And now it's not only at our doorstep, folks, America, not only at our doorstep, they're here. And they're going to be knocking on your door. Wake up, for goodness sakes. Wake up and start getting behind the people in this country who are working hard to save it. I get a little frustrated, I must say maybe a lot of frustrated and somewhat angry over the fact that I find it just, I guess, frustrating that there should be a hue and cry from every town, every city, every state across this country in the United States against this movement of the Communist Party. If you could fit 100,000 people into a football stadium every Sunday, why can't you get 100,000 people yelling screaming to the highest vocal cords that they have, that they want to put an end to this communist movement? I'll tell you why. Because it hasn't touched us as it has touched the people in South Korea and North Korea, as it touched the people in communist China. It hasn't touched us as it has touched the people in Canada. It's going to touch us. It is going to touch us in a brutal, brutal way if we do not wake up. And you know, I will always tongue lash the Democrats, because the Democrats in this country are no longer the Democrats I knew. The Democrats I knew in the United States of America belonged to a party that was run by Franklin Delano Roosevelt in his time, John F. Kennedy in my early days. That was a party of the people. It was the party of equality. It was the party of all the good things us conservatives pretty much latch on to. Now it's the party of Stalin, Marx, and Lenin. They're gone. The Democrat Party of the past is gone. But we in the Republican Party, I don't think we should start cheering just yet that they're gone, because along with them may be us. And I always reference Reagan. I always reference John Paul II. I reference these guys, Margaret Thatcher of Great Britain and others. I always reference those people because they stood up, they saw it coming, they did something about it. Today in the Republican Party, and I'll leave the Democrats out because they're gone, they're communist. And my party, the Republican Party, there are more cowards in this party than there are patriots. I'm not talking about the people. The people in this party, the grassroots Americans who are willing to stand up and speak out, they're the ones that are the salvation of America. But all of a sudden, there's midterm elections coming in November. All of a sudden, you get a knock at the door. Oh, who are you? Oh, I'm your congressman or congresswoman. Gee, you really are? What's your name? You know, folks, you don't see these people for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You just don't see, you don't even know who they are. But then the election comes, and then they're knocking at your door, or they're sending you the garbage they send you in the mail. They want your money. Why do you want my money? What have you done for me? Well, we're doing this and doing that. I'm asking you, what have you done for me? They don't have an answer because they've done nothing. Republicans as well as Democrats. Not all of them, but too many of them. So this is what we have going. And the unions, I'm going to surprise you tonight, union leaders, and I hope a lot of the union members in this country are watching, because what I'm going to share with you is going to run a chill up and down your spine. We've done a lot of research on what is exactly going on with American foreign policy. And we got a lot of questions now about this war in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia. A lot of questions that need to be asked. Perhaps questions that Tucker Carlson did ask on Fox News and got roasted over the coals for asking those questions. Well, Tucker, give me the seat next to you. Get ready, buddy, because now I've got questions. There's something going on, folks. There's something very, very wrong with this war between Russia and Ukraine. Very wrong. Last week, I tweeted this out. There's no secret. I've got nothing to hide. I just find it really disturbing that politicians in the United States of America, and I know some from around the world, I know in Canada, Trudeau went to Ukraine with his son. Why anybody in their right mind would go there to begin with, but to bring their child? I mean, you got to be crazy. Well, he is crazy, in my view. Something wrong with that guy. There's something wrong with all of them. But here's what I tweeted out. I found it deplorable, disturbing, appalling that politicians, Republicans, Democrats, or whoever they are from whatever country, find time to go to Ukraine for photo ops. For photo ops. You want a photo op, Mr. and Mrs. Politician? Go to where people are being killed. Go to where the blood is spilling in the streets. You want a photo op? You know where you're going to find those places? Not in Ukraine, in Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, New York City. That's where you're going to find the blood being spilled in the streets of our nation. I've said all along, we should not ever get involved in anybody else's foreign military conflicts. Never. Oh, but Lieutenant, Ukraine is a friend of ours. Other nations in Europe are friends of ours. Let them fight their own battles. I'm all for sending them weapons. All right, if they need the weapons to defend themselves, sure. But then again, we better make sure that the country we're sending the weapons to are representing the values that we represent here in the United States. I don't know, folks. I'm beginning to scratch my head over a lot of things going on here. This war's gone on too long, and there's just things going on here that are very, very disturbing. And I got to get into that issue a little bit more comprehensively as we move forward. I don't have enough time tonight, but there is something very troubling happening with that Russian-Ukraine scenario because it's spreading. Right now, not combat to combat, but it's going to drag the United States of America, and I shouldn't say it's going to, but Joe Biden, who I blame for that war, the instigator for that war, the guy that poked his finger in Vladimir Putin's face day in and day out. It's no secret. We all saw it. The problem is the cowards in this country who are in leadership positions are afraid to say that. They're afraid to stand up and say, well, you know, Joe Biden did a lot of instigating. Let me remind America that all was quiet. All was quiet with regard to Ukraine. The Ukrainians would have never been given admission into NATO. Never. Second most corrupt country on earth. But the fact of the matter is, Joe Biden decided that he should poke his finger in Putin's face day in and day out. Now, Putin warned and warned and warned and warned. And I remember those words. Hey, Joe, you listening? Joe wasn't listening. So he puts 150,000 Russian troops on the border. And he says, Joe, you're watching? I mean, how many red flags, how many signals do you need to get that something terrible is going to happen, Joe Biden, if you don't keep your fat mouth shut? But Biden kept on poking him in the face. And this is what we have. I don't believe that the Russians should have invaded. I don't like what I see. Innocents are dying. Innocent people are dying. War is ugly. War is ugly. Young men and women, children in Ukraine, young kids fighting in the Russian army. Look, as a military guy, I could tell you, we're the last people on earth that want to kill somebody else in an opposing force. We don't like it. We know we got to do our duty. That's why the unwritten rules of war, you've seen it all the time, my fellow veterans. If you're up against an enemy, you've wounded them, you bring them to a field hospital. That's how America is. We've always been that way. Pilot gets shot down from the air, it was American military forces. Our Navy would pick up those enemy forces. But the fact of the matter is that in this war, we've got politicians who created it and politicians who are not going to stop. And the one politician that I'm placing all this on is a guy named Joe Biden, and the party's the Democrat Party. And I'm gonna prove my point right now. To begin with, folks, I want to share with you something. All along, and those of you who have followed our broadcast, all along you know that I have said Joe Biden is going to drag us into a ground war, a terrible ground war that we may not be able to win. So people are saying, well, Russia's now tied up with Ukraine, so I don't think we're going to be involved in a ground war with Russia. And you're right, it's not Russia. I never believed it was Russia. But I always believed that we may have ended up in a ground war with China. So President Xi, he decides that maybe, just maybe, sooner rather than later, he should invade Taiwan. What a lot of American people don't know is that Vladimir Putin did delay, according to the reports we've read, did delay the invasion of Taiwan from China. President Xi, it was reported, was ready to send his troops into a land operation in Taiwan. But because the war started in Ukraine, he backed off and decided to wait. Probably wanted to see what was going to go on. Probably wanted to see what America was going to do. Now he knows. So President Xi is now thinking about invading Taiwan again. So what's Joe Biden's response? What is his response? Not to sit down. He's not willing to sit down and talk like Reagan did, like Trump did, like FDR, like JFK. Those guys decided to sit down and talk before anything got out of hand. But Joe Biden, this is what he does, folks. Listen, America, I'm getting to a point. Listen, getting to a point. Joe Biden decides, well, what we got to do? We've got to send more potent weapons to Taiwan. So what does he do? The headline is, the U.S. presses Taiwan to what? To buy weapons more suited to win a war against China. You're not going to win a war against China. It's not going to happen at this point. And so Joe Biden decides, well, maybe what we ought to do is get Taiwan to spend some money. Let's just get them to spend millions of dollars on U.S. weapons. That's his answer. That is his answer. The Biden administration's push for Taiwan to order missiles and smaller arms for asymmetric warfare has gained urgency since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Folks, America, the Chinese Communist Party military is not the Russian military. We're dealing with a very potent, powerful, sophisticated military in China, financed by the United States of America. That's right, folks. Financed by the United States of America. All the money we spend on what they produce goes into their military. All of it. You got the big tech people crying and screaming, well, we've got to make nicey nice with China, not to avoid a war, but to make money. To make money. And now they find a way for the defense industry, and I believe in defense of America and its allies under certain circumstances, in the event that there is an unprovoked attack where the United States is not involved in provoking the action, now they find a way. Instead of telling Taiwan, well, we'll give you the weapons, you need to buy them. You need to buy them. Folks, You really can't make this stuff up. So here's again more of Joe Biden's response. Listen, America, it's coming. So as all this is going on, as the Taiwanese are ready to maybe face a vicious, brutal military invasion of their country, Joe Biden, he says to them, start buying the weapons so you can defend yourself. Then he takes it a step further. The United States military under Joe Biden is being depleted to a point where we can't fight with an expectation to win 2 wars at one time, let alone 1. Unvaccinated Air Force cadets will get degrees, but they're not going to get commissions. So you got a country like China training their troops to kill us, to destroy our allies, and this administration, because of a vaccine that certain people who I believe have every right to say no, if you want to get it, get it. We've said it all along. We're not anti-vaccine. We're anti-mandate. So these guys and gals, they spend 4, 5, 6 years in the United States Air Force Academy, and they're told, well, you know what, you'll graduate, but you're not going to, and get your degrees, but you're not going to be a commissioned officer in the U.S. military. So the best and the brightest are now kicked out. You're out. You're gone. I don't care. The best fighter pilot in the world, you're gone. Why? You didn't get a jab. That's Joe Biden's response. Now, here's part of a letter that I read, folks. It was online, actually to a newspaper. This was in reference to West Point. My friend's son was disenrolled recently from West Point for refusing the COVID vaccine. They put that kid and others through absolute hell in the days leading up to the decision. Bullying, intimidating, threatening. That's how communists work. And they're right in our military academies. When I was in the United States Navy, we had the best and the brightest, all walks of life. Color, creed, religion didn't matter. We were one and one for all. But now it's not that way anymore. It's them against us. Compliments of Joe Biden and the Democrat Communist Party. So here's the assessment, America, of our military. Through the first 5 months of fiscal year 2022, the service had reached only, listen to this, folks, only about 23% of its active duty goal for new recruits. 23% of its active duty goal. Up until the time I retired, we were in the 80s, 75s, 80s, sometimes 90%. Young men and women were rushing to the recruiting office to serve their country, to be part of the effort to maintain and keep freedom in the United States of America and worldwide. Now they're running. They're running away. Folks, I got to tell you that a friend of mine who was in the Air Force, we talk about this constantly. If there's ever, a real fighting war regarding the United States of America, will this generation get up and fight? Will they get up and fight? That's a daunting question. Scary, isn't it? Why do I even have to ask the question? But I do. Wait, America, it's coming. I'm leading up to something. So anyway, so that's an assessment regarding the state of our military. Now, the 2023 defense budget, Joe Biden again, his answer, President Xi, are you listening? You're going to get a kick out of this. Vladimir, you listening? You're going to get a kick out of this. Why don't we throw Iran in there and other enemies from around the world? You're going to get a kick out of what I'm going to share with you that Joe Biden is doing in response to your threats against faith, freedom, and liberty around the world. The 2023 defense budget request from the White House, just released by the Biden administration, reduces, get this, you can't make this stuff up, reduces the size of the United States Army by 12,000 soldiers. It isn't that the Army doesn't need those soldiers, because they badly need them. Look what's happening. We're ready to go to war every place on the face of the earth. So it isn't that the Army doesn't need those soldiers. Senior leaders have consistently said the Army is too small. Get a load of that. They're admitting, confessing, the Army's too small, Mr. President. We need troops. We need men and women ready to go to war to protect our national security. But it's not happening. The reason for the cut is that the Army projects that they won't be able to recruit enough people to meet their quotas. They already know they can't get enough people. Wait, America, it's coming. They already know that they cannot get enough people to join the United States military to protect who? The United States of America and freedom and liberty worldwide. On top of that, our critical weapon systems, that's our fighter jets, our submarines, our tanks, our ships, our aircraft carriers, and on and on and on, folks. They don't have the equipment to fix them. They can't be fixed. They're struggling to get spare parts. The most mighty military on earth just a few years ago is now struggling to get spare parts. And a few weeks ago, I was thinking, because we all read, right? And we all listen. You notice there's been an increase in fighter jets crashing, military ships breaking down. There's been suicides aboard aircraft carriers. All this is facts. Look it up. Why is this happening? Well, there's an answer. There's an answer, folks. And part of that answer is that the United States military, according to General Mark Milley, get a load of this, the general who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has said that the United States military spent a total last year of nearly 6 million man hours and tens of thousands of dollars on what? On teaching our young men and women about extremism, diversity, equity, the inclusion, about what? Critical race theory. So all this money in training has gone into wokeism, and it has put the United States military to sleep. And the sleep is so deep, I am very troubled, very, very troubled to say that the United States military in my lifetime is now on suicide watch, because this is what they did to us. They meaning the very people you union leaders put in office and who you're still supporting and who you're still endorsing, the Democrat Party, who took your jobs, who took food off of the plates of your children, who took your homes, who took your bank accounts. That's right, union leaders of this country. And I could go down the list. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. But you know what's really bothering me? A lot of these union leaders, and I've talked to some of them, said, well, you got to be diplomatic. You got to do this and do that. You don't have to feed the Chinese Communist Party. You don't have to take the money out of your bank account and give it to the Chinese Communist Party, who will do what with it? They're going to make the guns and the missiles and the fighter jets and the ships that are going to kill us. They're going to make them to kill us and to destroy us. Because that was always President Xi's plan, and well before him, the communists that control that country. We are alarmed that so much training time and taxpayer money was devoted to a partisan political agenda instead of recruiting, training, and equipping the lethal force we need to defend our country. That's from top U.S. military personnel. That's from senators of the Republican Party. That is from the American people. You want me to read it again? Union leaders and those who are still going to vote Democrat, and the Republicans who don't have the guts to stand up and to shout it out that we need to do something, and something quickly. I'll read it again. We are alarmed that so much training time and taxpayer money was devoted to a partisan political agenda instead of recruiting, training, and equipping the lethal force we need to defend this country. What do you think of that, folks? The money was spent on a political agenda brought to us by the people who embrace the ideology of Marx, Lenin, and Stalin, the Communist Party. I quite often say, we've seen this before, we did. You've heard me say, in the 50s and 60s, it was Reagan's turn to beat them into the ground, which he did and succeeded. He had help. He had help with Pope John Paul, Margaret Thatcher. I said it over and over. We had tremendous amount of help from the Canadians. A lot. A lot of help that the Americans don't know. You know, we had a lot of help with the Canadians when we were involved in Iraq. I remember some particular things the Canadians did to get some of our hostages out. But nobody wants to talk about that because, you see, the communists in Canada don't want any of that information out. But we're going to get that out. We are bonded together with free people all over the world. And yet they've managed, the enemies of this country and of all free countries have managed to just slice away and divide us. As I said, the Democrat Party of the United States of America, they're going to kill them. They've already destroyed their party. They killed themselves. They're done. Now they're going to work on us. That's why I've said, and I've lost friends over this, folks. Friends. Let me tell you about friendship in politics. You got a lot of friends in politics, and don't worry, we'll always be your friends, especially those you break bread with. But then they decide that they want to support someone else, which is fine, right? It's fine with you. And then you decide, well, I'm going to support somebody else. Maybe the person my friend don't want to support. And then they take it personal. And then they begin to call names, denigrate, talk about you behind your back. You never would have believed that. But it's happened. I've heard it happen over and over and over again with people I know. It's happened to me, for goodness sakes. But you need to stay true to yourself. Maintain your integrity and your character. Because I'll tell you what happens, folks. I'll tell you what happens all the time. Remember the saying, all glory is fleeting? Well, their glory is fleeting and their glory is going. Because freedom-loving people are going to win. Now, I will get to the Americans. Excuse me, Canada and those around the world who I'm looking here. I want to talk to the American people for a minute in that camera. You just heard what I said. You just heard what I revealed. Our military's in shambles. They can't get enough recruits. We can't win a war. We're in a mess. You know why we're in a mess? We've allowed it to happen. Well, what does it have to do with me, Lieutenant? You got kids? Hug them tonight, because I heard the same scenario during the Vietnam War. Over and over and over again. And well before that, the generation before me heard that, which leads me to this. The reason why I say hug your kids is because if we end up in one war, let alone two, and we don't have the men and the women to fight the war, the draft is coming back. Don't let any Democrat or any politician kid you. The draft will be coming back. How do you fight a war without an army, without a Navy, without Marines, without an Air Force? 23% of their recruiting goals? Believe me, some politician on the communist side is going to say, you know what? We just can't fulfill our obligation to protect our national security with the amount of troops we have. Nobody's joining. So now we're going to go after them. And we're going to have a draft. Remember, what's the date? May 23rd, 2022 at 7:34 p.m. A former retired lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, Steve Rogers, said that there will be a draft. I hope there won't be. I hope I'm wrong. My. The state of affairs we are in. But that's only one side of it. There is another side. The side that I'm talking about is the side that a lot of people don't see. That's the side of faith and freedom. The side of strong-willed, courageous people that are standing up in their countries, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, Germany, France, Italy, South Africa, Iceland, and on and on and on. There are people all over the world who stand for faith and liberty. And that's the side of the story that they won't shed the light on, but God Almighty will and is. Like I said at the beginning of this broadcast, the unintended consequences of the Canadian protest against Trudeau was to awaken not just Canada, but my goodness, you all there in Canada, you woke up the world. To your credit, you woke up the entire planet. to get involved and to do something before it's too late. They did, America. They did. We did a lot. We did a lot. I know we did a lot. We fought a lot. But too many of us have gone to sleep. But I thank God Almighty that now, Mom and Dad and Aunt and Uncle and Grandma and Grandpa and all of those on Grassroots America are waking up and running for school boards, running for city councils, taking control of their city governments and bringing the values in which America was founded upon back into the mainstream. Which leads me to one final point. I put a call out, and I'll put it again out tonight, and I'll do it Thursday night, to one group of people that I want to meet with. I can't come to Canada. They'll never let me out if they don't kill me. But I could come to Canada through these means, this necessary and wonderful gift God has given us. I want to meet with pastors, clergy, men and women in Canada and the United States. We've got a plan, a wonderful plan to help the people on the streets that are getting the courage to stand up and fight for their country. We've got a plan. I want to talk to you about it. I want to sit down at a roundtable Zoom meeting or whatever and talk to you about the plan. And the thing is, you won't have to go out on the streets. You won't have to leave your house or your rectory. You won't have to leave the comfort of your home. But you may have to get a little bit out of your zone. But it is a plan that has been time-tested and that could help us win the war on communists. Because I've said all along, the first goal, the first target, the first victims of the Communist Party was, and always will be people of faith, people who believe in God Almighty. So there it is, folks. Again, I'm calling upon the clergy in the United States of America and those of you in Canada for a minute. Maybe literally a 10 to 15 minute meeting to sit down to discuss a plan we have. And if you don't like it, that's okay. But let's do something. Let's do something. Like someone said to me last week, I pray God does something. He is, through us, through we the people of the United States of America, through we the people of Canada, through we the people of Germany, of France, of England, and on and on and on and on. We the people. God has heard our cries. He has heard our prayers. And now he's saying, whom shall I send? And it is our duty and our obligation to look up to God Almighty, eyeball to eyeball, and utter those words, send me. That's it. America, you've heard it. Hug your kids tonight. Hug them. I will do the best I could as I can and as I will continue to do with a whole great group of people working with me to make sure that what I predict, what I believe may happen and hope don't happen, to prevent it, help prevent a war, a brutal war that will commit ground troops of the United States of America and commit your sons and your daughters. I know how it is. My whole country fought wars. My whole country, my whole family fought wars. Every single member of my family, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, we were in all branches of the service. I don't want to see any young kid go into a war that's invented and created by a politician like Joe Biden again. Never. We got a job to do. And let me tell you something, folks, we're going to do it. We, the people, far outnumber them, the communists. They have to hide in holes. We are standing on mountaintops. And nobody's going to silence us. Nobody. So, folks, that's it. Thanks so much for joining me tonight. I'll be here a special broadcast Wednesday night with some great Americans who are running for local offices here in the United States, taking control of their governments from local levels. That's just one special broadcast. Then we're going to have Thursday night, we're going to speak to someone with regard to what's happening not only in Canada, but another country. And you see, it's starting. You see, I said that what we're doing, we the people are doing from Canada and America and other countries, it's starting to spread. The message is starting to spread. And that's great news. It's good news. Why? Because it's winning news. So that's it, folks. So you see, campaignforamerica.com. Campaign, the number 4America.com. That's our website. I'm beginning to ask every time I'm on the air. No pressure, okay? But I'm going to ask. The Bible says you receive not because you ask not. As you see, we're growing. We're growing and growing. If you could help us financially and prayerfully, let's put it this way, prayerfully first and then financially. Please go to our website. We got a little bar that says donation or contribution. I don't care if it's $1. Those dollars add up. So I ask that you consider helping us out. Now, another thing, our newsletter is being made. It's going to go out in about 3 weeks. And we're going to start sending you, hopefully through our PDF software, some of the reports that, like I read tonight, you're going to be able to receive in writing. And then you'll be able to pass it around and share it with people. How's that? And finally, if you want us to come into your home, we could. Get about 6, 7 people together, turn on your computer, turn on Zoom or whatever platform we're going to go on, and we'll come right to your home. What do you think of that? And we'll talk to you, roundtable, right in your house, via these social media or these private media platforms. That's it, folks. Have a great, great week. See you Thursday night. In fact, see you tomorrow, Wednesday night for the another U.S. edition, but Thursday night, our Canadian edition. That's it. Campaign, the number 4America.com. I talk too much. I'm starting to lose my voice. Thanks a lot, folks. God bless you. God bless all freedom-loving people around the world. And remember, folks, believe me, there's no negotiation here with the enemy. The only outcome is they lose and we win. God bless you. Thanks so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. I am Lieutenant